Okay, hello everybody. This is the Health Coach Power Community Q&A. My name is Michelle Fennickhouse. Thank you so much for joining me. As you probably know, childhood obesity and type 2 diabetes it's ridiculous. It's at an all-time high, and it's definitely a place where people can use some health coaching advice and support. So have you ever wanted to work with children in your health coaching practice? Today, we're going to talk about this idea of working with children's health and sort of the trick to making it a profitable business model. I'll be answering lots of other questions as well, right? So if you're here with me live as we're streaming on Facebook, go ahead and put your questions into the comment area now, and I'll be getting to those shortly. But before we dig in, this episode is brought to you by my free online training, Turn Your Health Coaching Business into a Full-Time Salary. Now, if you've ever wondered how to get out of hobby mode and into business mode where you're bringing home some income every month, join me for this on-demand training at findyourbalancehealth.com/earn. Okay, so let's talk about working with the kiddos. This is a question that came in from Jessica, and Jessica said, has anyone worked with children or ran workshops, activities for kids? I'm planning a workshop for girls from 1st grade to 5th grade, and I would love ideas. So first of all, Jessica, I wanted to say, good job. We need people out there doing just that, working with not just those of us who are already on so many medications, but the new generation. So awesome to get that set up. And I'm sure you're going to get lots of answers about this in the group. You've got some already. If you search the Facebook group at healthcoachpowercommunity.com, right? You just search the group for like kids activities. You'll find a lot of people have posted similar things in the past. But the reason that I wanted to really talk about your question is because I think that, well, a lot of health coaches are moms. Even if you're not a mom, we might be drawn to this idea of working with children, and it is so important. But we have to remember that children do not have wallets. And if you want a business that is profitable, you have to think about how are you going to turn this time with the kids, regardless of what activities you do. I'm sure they're going to have a great time, and they're going to say, when's that lady going to come back and make smoothies with us again, or whatever it is that you end up doing, right? But how do you actually connect the dots between doing good service in the world for children and putting money into your pocketbook? So I wanted to suggest to you, Jessica, that no matter what you do for the girls, think about how can you get their parents involved? And so I'm not sure exactly what the setup is here, but is it the type of thing that the parents will be there with them? And if so, literally, how can you get them involved? And if they're not going to be present with their kids during the activities, how can you send something home to help get the parents? Not only to I know my kids come home from school and I kind of look at the papers in their backpack and toss them into recycling, but what can you offer the parents so they actually take a minute and pay attention to what's on that piece of paper? Maybe you're offering them some sort of freebie that if they go to your URL, they can download it, something to augment what the kids had learned at school that day. Again, I'm not really sure what the setup is for how you're doing this workshop, but the idea is that if you want this to connect to earning money with your business, even when a child is the target of your workshop, or if it's your target market, the child really isn't the target. It is always going to be the parents, and ideally parents who have disposable income and a big enough problem with their kids, whether it's a behavioral problem or some sort of health issue like chronic colds, sinus infections. I got a kid right now sitting on my couch with strep throat. So if something came home that was like, never get strep throat again, I would probably be going to check out that URL pretty quickly because I haven't cracked the code on strep throat. So that's what I have to suggest for you, Jessica, and good luck with your workshop, and let us know how it goes. Okay, next question comes from Laura. And Laura says, I'm looking for some advice on a client. I'm working with a woman who has pretty bad body acne. So I'm assuming like on her back and on her chest and things like that. And this is something she's been battling with her whole life. It gets better and worse, but it never really goes away. She was tested for hormone levels and found that she has high testosterone and took a medication for that for a while, but she stopped last summer. She's a teacher and she finds that it gets better in the summer and worse in the school year, which could be stress related, but her diet and lifestyle also get better in the summer and worse in the school year. So it could be related to that. So Laura's looking for some advice around this client. And what struck me about this case, Laura, was that, I mean, I'm sure you already got some useful answers from the group, but, you know, it's easy to get into this like, oh, we'll take her off this food or give her this supplement, or she needs this test, or she needs to balance such and such, and get pretty scientific about it and into the nitty gritty details. But what I wanted to call out to you and to all of you guys is that I think you already know the answer, because you wrote it right here, Laura. You said it gets better when she's in the summertime, when she's not working. So it's stress related. And her diet and lifestyle get better in the summer. So right there, you know that between what she's eating, how she's living, her lifestyle, and the stress that she's under, boom, those are triggers for this acne. And you could read like a whole book, you know, like I have, you know, The Hormone Cure sitting on my shelf over here by Sarah Gottfried. I read the whole book cover to cover and I shut it and I was like, oh, the hormone cure is to relax. I mean, like, that's the whole book, basically. I mean, yeah, there's details, but it comes down a lot to stress, and it's the basics. And this is why health coaching is so powerful, because you don't actually have to know. It's nice if you guys know, like, oh, taking someone off dairy can be helpful, or giving somebody this herb can be helpful. That's great. But the basics will take you so very far. So it sounds like when you're working with this client, you want to focus on getting her to relax. And that's not like going to be accomplished by like, you have to do meditation every morning, because as I noticed, you wrote further down in the chain, she's doing some yoga or whatever, but she seems pretty stressed out about that. And people can get stressed out when they have too many to-do items on their list, even when they are like wellness to-do items. So one thing I ask my clients to do is to give themselves unstructured downtime every week to start, and every day eventually, because going to yoga class, forcing yourself to sit for meditation is yet one more thing that women have to think about doing. And so often the beauty is in giving somebody permission to just do nothing, stare at the ceiling. I tell my clients, like, pick your toes. I don't care. Like, just give yourself that break where I do not have to be productive right now. I'm not doing something with a greater goal in mind. I'm just zoning out or reading a book for pleasure. You know what I mean? So I think that could go a long way versus like straight up stress reduction techniques. And then, of course, addressing her diet, whatever she's doing in the summer clearly is working better. A lot of people eat more vegetables in the summer, fruits and vegetables, because they're in season and it's just easier to do so. So that's just a guess. But, you know, again, often the answers are much more simple and straightforward than you think. So go with your gut, Laura. I'm glad that you brought up this question, because I think it applies to so much of the work that we do with our clients, and so much of the doubt that we can have about ourselves as health coaches and our ability to be effective, which really our ability to be effective is very, very high. Okay, again, if anybody watching right now or listening has a question that you want me to answer, I'll be getting to those in just a moment. So go ahead and put those into the comment area. And we are going to move on to a question from Jordan, who says, I was asked if I want to donate my services for a raffle, all proceeds going to charity. Has anyone ever done anything like this? And if so, what kind of package did you donate? I've seen this come up before, Jordan, so that's why I wanted to address it, because it's come up for me too in my life. And at the time, I'm like, yeah, sure, of course. Like, my services don't have a hard cost associated with them. It's my time or whatever, but donating something seems so easy to do. And, you know, it was for a good cause and all the rest. But I think it's a little strange. Like, health coaching is so personal. As you know, somebody has to be really committed, really ready to invest. And forget the money part of it, but just the time and the energy into creating change for themselves and sitting with a coach who allows them to do that. It's so personal that for a raffle, is someone really in the state of mind where they're going to be like, oh, yes, this is a good decision I need to make for myself. I'm going to bid on this raffle item. Like, no, they're probably like, oh, I'm at my kid's raffle. All right, I'll do that, and that, and check it off on their little sheet, I just don't think it makes for good clients, and I don't think it makes for a very good client experience. Now, that being said, I'm sure there's people out there who have done this and it's worked out really beautifully, but I just want to put out there that the way that you acquire clients has a lot to do with the success that they're going to have. Just like if you had a client that you had to beg to work with you, or that you let them do it for pennies because they said they didn't have enough money or whatever, the way that you acquire a client, it kind of like translates into the experience that you have and that client has. So I generally would say, don't donate health coaching services to raffles and things like this. However, if you have some sort of product, like a cookbook or even an online, like a digital product of some kind, a class or whatever, a set of meal plans, I could see that being something that's more of like a hard product that you could donate instead of private coaching. That would be my suggestion. Do with it what you will. Okay, so now I'd love to answer your questions. And I see one here from Stephanie. And she says, I am struggling with gathering email subscribers. What are the basics of setting up a great landing page? How do you follow through with your free giveaway? It seems as if you can't give a PDF through MailChimp. Thank you. Okay, Stephanie. So this is something that it's just kind of like nuts and bolts that you have to learn. It's something that I take my Healthy Profit University students through step by step, just to know, like, how do you deliver that PDF through MailChimp, which you totally can. You do it in your final welcome email for any given list. But in terms of setting up a great landing page, well, one of the things I see missing from a lot of landing pages when coaches are like, okay, I'm going to give away a freebie, and they just kind of set something up real quick, is that they don't give enough information. So yes, I may be your friend and I go to your landing page and I know who you are and I trust you, so I'm going to download your thing. But hopefully you're going to be advertising this freebie to people who don't know you already. So it's important for the page to have a picture of you, a little bit of something about you. Some social proof can be really helpful. So anything from just saying that you're a certified health coach to talking about the results that you get with your clients, or where you've been featured in the news, or anything that you can share about yourself. You're a Harvard graduate, that's going to make a stranger say, okay, this person seems at least a little bit trustworthy. That's nice. So you want to have some of that on there, help people understand who you are. And then you want to tell them what they're going to get, because even though it's free, people are more and more timid to share their email address because they don't want a whole bunch of spam. So if you're going to be giving someone, 10 recipes and 2 meal plans and the shopping list, like, spell that out for them, what's included, as much as possible. And the other thing is, tell them what problem this is going to solve for them. And it goes back to knowing who your target market is and what they struggle with. Because if you just tell me you're going to give me recipes and meal plans, like, that's pretty vague, and I'm going to be like, no, thank you. But if you're telling me, a woman who struggles with sleep, that you're going to be giving me this resource that's going to help me with sleep during perimenopause, I might be like, okay, now I'm listening. Now I'm ready to give you my email address. So that's another thing that we go through with Healthy Profit University, is we really talk about, who are you targeting? What is the big problem that you can solve for them? And then how do you dig into their brain to know exactly the words and the triggers that are going to make them jump and sign up to get something like this from you? So it's not just about, like, the technology of setting up the landing page, but really understanding what's going on up here with your target market, so that she doesn't just roll her eyes and blow by your page, but she actually stops and says, oh, hey, that's me. That's exactly what I need. That's what you want. That's what makes for a great landing page. Great question. Okay, got another one over here from Kathy who says, I am also struggling with growing my mailing list. I looked at my Facebook friends and I have 40 to 45 people that would be in my target market. I don't have their email address. Is it kosher to private message them and let them know what I'm doing and if they would like to receive my emails? Yeah, that's kosher. What's not kosher is like if you had their email addresses, just plopping them on your mailing list. Like if you haven't talked to them since like high school, like if it's it's your friend, your neighbor that you talk to every day. I'm cool with those types of people being on your list from the get-go. But when it's someone on Facebook that like you went to college with, or it's a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, you never want to just put those people straight on your list. But it is worth reaching out to them and asking. Again, it's helpful if you had a freebie to give away, or if you had, if you could form some thoughts around why you're able to serve them so well, like, hey, Jane, I know that last time we saw each other was like 2 years ago at that Christmas party, but you mentioned that you had been struggling with such and such. That's exactly what I am creating this new business around. And I wondered if you'd be interested in staying in touch, something like that, so that you can relate it to what you know about that person and maybe a conversation that you've had. Keep it really friendly. And relate it to the problem that she's struggling with. So yes, that would be the appropriate way to do it. Otherwise, of course, as you move along in your business, let's say like Stephanie, you set up a landing page and you had some sort of freebie that you're giving away, or you had a blog post that had like a gated content upgrade, which is a freebie embedded inside of a blog post, and you're sharing those things on Facebook. I mean, I do share my own content to my personal Facebook page from time to time, because I too have friends from high school, from college, from wherever, who fit into my target market. So you can always be sharing your content to Facebook, and those people will come upon it, although you're relying a little bit more on chance that way. Okay, what else do we have here, you guys? I've got a question from Darcy, and she says she's trying to gather resources and wondered what everyone's favorite apps are to recommend to their clients to help them on their journey to wellness. There's probably a million of these, Darcy. I'm not really like that much of an app person. My husband makes fun of me because like on my phone, I have like 5 things. But one thing that came to mind when I read this was that in terms of women who have not gone through menopause yet, I think it's really helpful for a woman to have an app, or if it's not an app, whatever, a chart on paper where she's tracking her cycle. It can be super helpful for her to stay in touch with her body's rhythms, and just, it's a reason for people to pay attention to themselves, period. But, period, no pun intended. But it could also be a really useful diagnostic tool. So that's one app that I use and that I recommend for everybody. So just a thought. I'm sure you'll get lots of other thoughts on the group about MyFitnessPal and all the other ones, but I don't use any of that stuff. Okay, I have another question here from Stephanie. She says, how do you handle clients that now they are self-sabotaging their efforts? Oh, I'd love to hear an example of how that's going for you, Stephanie, with one of your clients. I mean, self-sabotage is real and it's real common. And I think, once again, this is what makes health coaching so powerful, because if somebody goes to see a nutritionist and the nutritionist says, here's what I want you to eat, this many calories, this many grams of fat, goodbye, and you don't do it, that's the end of how a nutritionist can really help you. But when you're working with a health coach, our job is to really, yes, we're going to share information about food. Yes. But our job is to kind of step back and look at the whole person. So what's really going on here? Call people out on what you see. If you see that there's some self-sabotage going on, bring it up. Hey, what are your thoughts on self-sabotage? As casual as that. Or you can point something out that they're doing. I don't know the specifics of this case, but you could point something specific out that they're doing. And again, just open the door. I have a client now who just told me that she realized that she has this attitude towards food, like, screw it. She's somebody who doesn't like to conform to society. She's an artist. And like when she was young, this was kind of part of her attitude, like, screw it all. Like, I'm going to do whatever I want. And that would translate into like eating Doritos or having that treat or whatever she wanted to do. But these days, 10 years later, she's a mom of two, she's 20 pounds overweight. And she's like, I think that I'm still using that same voice of like, screw it, I'm going to eat those Twinkies. When she's like, actually, what fits with my belief system now is like, screw it, I'm going to cook my own food because, it's like, that's how I'm going against culture now, is to not buy my kids the pre-made meals and to not stop at McDonald's or whatever, but to actually make something homemade in my own kitchen. Like, yeah, that's how I can stick it to the man. And it was just so interesting because it was a conversation not so much about nutrients, but it was a conversation about our feelings and our thoughts and our habits around food and how they change through the years. So anyway, I guess what I'm saying is that when you have someone who is self-sabotaging their own efforts, like that's an opportunity to have a really interesting discussion. Let's see. Stephanie is now writing, she'll do well for 2 weeks and then she falls off the wagon. She stated that her mom shamed her when she was young. I have brought it up and she knows it and can't fix it. So that's okay. She doesn't have to fix it, right? But it's so cool that you're having that conversation with her. I had a client like that once too. And it's a big conversation, and it wouldn't be incorrect to suggest like, hey, have you ever talked to a therapist about what's gone on with your mom in the past? Because surely it was bigger and broader than just her mom shaming her a little bit about food. So anyway, it is your delight and your responsibility as a coach to open these doors for conversations, even if you are not the right person to close the loop on the conversation and quote, fix it or have them fix it within your time together. You can open the doors and point them in the right direction. Good questions. Okay, I have about 6 minutes left. So I am going to go to this question from Megan. And Megan says that she's looking for insight. She has a client who's basically been eating veggies and protein for a few months. No grain, no starchy carbs or fruit, and limited healthy fats. She's lost a lot of weight, but she's hit a plateau and she wants to be able to add in new foods, although it's backfired before. So when I first read that, Megan, I was thinking, okay, so you have this client that's gone like low carb, low fat, whatever, and she lost a lot of weight, so she thinks it's awesome. And then when she adds some carbs back, she like gains 10 pounds all of a sudden. So that's really scary. And I was like, But then I was reading further down the chain when you wrote, she has hypothyroidism and was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes after the birth of her second daughter. When I say backfire, once she starts to give into some carbs like sweet potatoes, she felt it was like a gateway to other carbs and she has trouble eating these in moderation. So it's not that her body is rebelling and saying like, oh my God, you ate a sweet potato, we're going to tack on 10 pounds to what you weigh today. It's that once she starts eating carbohydrates, she can't stop, the food cravings are too much. So what I would really focus on is that piece, because eliminating carbohydrates from one's diet is not the thing that you want to do. Contrary to popular belief, we need carbohydrates. Now, we don't need to eat like 3 bagels a day, but she should be getting healthy carbs, especially in the form of like a sweet potato or a butternut squash or something like that. So if she's unable to moderate that, like to me, that's the discussion I would be having with her. Like, why not? Let's talk about that a little bit. Is it gut dysbiosis where her gut flora are just so out of whack, they're screaming for sugar. The second they get some, they proliferate like mad, and she's fighting an uphill battle. Okay, if so, maybe we need to discuss measures of fixing what's going on in her gut, but also mentally. What are carbs giving her? Is she using it as a lift, as so many women are? Is she using it as a way to get energy or to feel a little bit happier throughout the day? And, carbs can become a crutch in that sense. So there's a lot of emotional issues that could go along with this. But I really talk about the cravings, because the answer, I strongly believe the answer is not for her to not eat carbohydrates for the rest of her life. And for the record, she should also be probably eating more healthy fats. I don't know what limited healthy fats mean, but whenever I see a diet that is very skewed, like let's say somebody's vegan, and whatever problem they're having, if they're strict vegan, chances are it could be resolved if their diet was a little more varied. Now, if they're vegan and they're perfectly fine and their energy is great and their fertility is no problem, hey, be vegan, go crazy. But if they're feeling tired or whatever, or if somebody's eating whatever, in this case, no grains, and she's having problems, well, the best diet is a diet that is moderate and varied. It's so simple. And it always comes back to just about the same thing. So I think you got some other interesting ideas on the group about maybe intermittent fasting or some other things that she could be doing to get past that weight plateau. But I don't think anything's going to work for her long term if she can't eat some carbs without ending up in a craving cycle. So that's what I have to say about that. I think I got time for one more question. So I'm going to go to this one from Nima. And Nima says, hi, everyone. Is there anyone here who focuses on gut health, healthy living for diabetics, and pregnancy nutrition? Do you know any great sources of information for these areas? So I kind of had two ways that I wanted to answer this question for you, Nima. Also, I know Nima, so I know a little bit more about what's going on with her, and say, girlfriend, you have got to pick one of these topics. If you're going to go after a target market who is diabetic, then go after that. But you or me, no one person has time in their day to have 2 or 3 different target markets and work all those angles effectively. So pick one of these. However, I did want to point out that in terms of pregnancy, and just for anybody else wondering, anybody who's pregnant themselves or has clients who are pregnant, when I was pregnant, the best book that I ever read was Real Food for Mother and Baby. And I can put the link into the comments after we get off the live broadcast. But it's Real Food for Mother and Baby by Nina Plank. And that really spelled out for me a lot of things that I was curious about. And it also goes into talking about breastfeeding and maybe even birth, birth itself. I think it's the whole package. But that was like a great book around pregnancy. It's a little bit based in the Weston A. Price traditions, if you're familiar with that. But if there's ever a time to listen to those Weston A. Price folks, it's when you're pregnant. So take a look at that book. I hope that is helpful. And we are just about out of time. So I want to thank you all so much for being here. Keep asking awesome questions, and I'll be back next week to answer more of them. Take care, everyone.